Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm Coach, a mother of four, and potty talker, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in.
Welcome into another episode of the podcast, everybody. I am excited to be here with you again this week, talking about something that really weighs on me. Like, I think about it all the time in my own parenting, and I feel like it's one of the things that I have worked really hard to teach my clients as well, and just introduce this idea because I think it's just really different than how the rest of our society really teaches us to show up in relationships. And I think the more we can embody it with our kids, the more healthy our relationship with our kids becomes. And the more just kind of like unlimited our children grow up to be. And that is, this idea of kind of taking ourselves out of the equation as much as we can, um, as our children are making choices about their behavior and what direction they want to go and all of these things. And this concept applies just across the board, does not matter how old your kid is. I think it's way easier to implement when our kids are younger, and it becomes trickier and more nuanced as they get older. And I'm going to tell you a little about a conversation I had with one of my kids recently that maybe will illustrate what I'm talking about. And then I'm, obviously going to get more direct and clear in what I'm telling you. So a couple of weeks ago, so actually, let me back up even further than that. One of my kiddos, I have no idea why. This is just his personality. But one of my kids is just really wired to try to find the way around all of the sort of conventional ways that society tells us to do stuff. And especially the conventional ways that society tells us to do hard things, like have money or, um, you know, do work, all of those things. Like, he just, if you tell him, doesn't matter. I'll tell you the actual story, and then you'll see. I don't need to give you a hypothetical. So this is an actual story. Um, this kiddo has a car, and we have an arrangement with him that he needs to pay for half of his insurance every month and his for gas. It's his car. It's his responsibility. So he has financial obligations with the car, basically. Like, if it weren't for this car, he would basically have no financial obligations. But because of the car, because he wanted to have a car, he also has taken on these financial responsibilities. And every year we go away for the whole summer. So he can't work during the summer. So he gets a job during the school year. But before he gets a job during the school year, he tries every possible alternative to getting a job that he can possibly think of. He will like shake down people that he thinks owe him money. He will come up with a rationale why someone else should pay for something instead of him. He'll like sell some of his clothes that he's gotten thrifting to try to make some money, like anything but getting a job. Like, he just, for whatever reason, does not want to get a job. And most of the time, I am very good at just being like, well, life itself will teach you the lessons you need to learn about how to acquire money and the necessity of money and all of that stuff. I don't need to lecture you about it or get upset about the fact that you're just, in my opinion, being so, it's just like, dude, face the facts. You need to get a job. You don't even need to work that much. You could just work like once a week and have plenty of money for all of these things that you want to buy and all of the things that you are, bills that you're expected to pay. Like, it really isn't that of big of a need, to work, but he just doesn't want to do it. And most of the time, like I said, I'm totally chill about that. And I'm just like, oh, babe, you'll figure this out. I don't care, how you pay your bills. You just need to pay your bills. And even I'm super neutral about whether he does pay his bills. Like I'm able to say, well, it looks like you're not paying your bills. So I guess we're going to take you off the insurance. And, when you're ready to get your own insurance or, you know, be able to demonstrate that you can pay your bills, then we're happy to either put you back on your insurance and you can have access to your car again, or you can get your own insurance and you'll have access to your car again. I am normally so like, whatever, you'll figure this out. It's your journey. But there is a part of me that is so irritated with what I interpret as his entitlement. I don't understand why he has come to believe that he's the one human being on the planet who's exempt from conducting himself according to the laws of society. Like, we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago where he was like, do you understand how frustrating it is to work and then you get all this money and then you just have to pay all of your bills with that money and then you have no money left? And I started laughing where I was like, yeah, I know exactly how that feels because that's what I do every day. That's what all adults, everyone you see around you, that's what all of us are doing. We're all working and earning money and then using that money to pay for our lives and not having a whole lot left over when we're done. That's just how you're describing life, not this horrible, unique, bad circumstance that you're in. And there's this part of me that is like, what makes you like, what have I done as a parent? So that's part of it, right? Is like, how did I manage to raise a kid who thinks they are exempt from the way that the world works? Like, that is not how I've raised my children. Like, I've got 3 kids. He's the only one who turned out this way, but still there's a part of me that's like, I obviously have missed something in the way that I have parented him, that he has turned out this way. And then there's also a part of me that's it's not really about my parenting at all. It's more just like, if anybody, not my son, any human being on the planet had this attitude towards work and just being a part of, the way the world works and all of that stuff, I would probably be just as judgmental of them. It's just like, who do you think you are? Those parts of me, normally I am able to just be like, yeah, I get that. I know I feel that way, but I also know that that's not the most efficient or effective or, proper way to parent my kids. So those parts are allowed to exist, but they're not where I'm going to be parenting from. And then I'm certainly not going to express those things to my son because it's not helpful and all that stuff. But recently, I don't know. Those parts finally were like, we will be heard. And I totally just gave him this lecture. And he turned to me. He's like, why do you care? Why do you care how I get the money that I need to pay these bills? Like, I can do it however I want. And he was totally right. But when he asked me, why do I care? Instead of saying, you're right, it's none of my business. It's your job to take care of your responsibilities. And it's my job to, step back and let you do it your own way. And I didn't, instead of saying that, I was just like, why do I care? Because I don't understand. Like, how is it possible for you to think that, and on and on and on. I kind of just went off and gave him this lecture, and we've always disagreed about whether it's like fair or right that he should have to pay for part of his car insurance. He really thinks that it's just the worst parenting on the planet. And once again, normally I am able to just be like, yep, you're allowed to think that, and maybe you're right. I'm not the end all be all authority about whether or not I'm a good mom. You're allowed to think that me expecting you to contribute to car insurance is cruel and unusual punishment. You're allowed to even believe that we've permanently harmed you by expecting you to do that. Like, normally I'm able to be like that. But once again, there's a part of me that's like, I don't want my kid to see me that way. And I don't think it's true. And I don't think that's a fair way of looking at me. And it bugs me. And I don't know what it was. Maybe Mercury was in retrograde or the stars were aligned or whatever. But this one day, I just couldn't keep all of that crap to myself. And I just let it all out. And I was angry with him and frustrated and guilting him and, all of this stuff. And afterwards, I just felt so terrible. And this is what I want to talk about today. Why did I feel terrible? Why was that not a great thing to do as a parent? Because I'm sure, first of all, I know that my feelings about this and what I said in that conversation did impact him. And I know that he now is, looking for a job. Um, so, and I'm sure that in times when you have allowed yourself to just kind of be no holds barred with your kiddo and vent how you feel about whatever their behavior is, there have been probably times where doing that was effective in the sense that your child actually did the thing you wanted them to do. Your emotions, your frustration, your, true feelings about their choices impacted them in a way that got them to do the stuff that you wanted them to do. That is totally possible. In fact, it's probable, especially if it's rare that you do that. And then especially if you have a good kind of dynamic. Depends on the age of the kid, because there's definitely ages where kids will take what you want from them to do for them to do as the thing not to do and go the opposite direction. But in general, like when we're really upset about something and we be upset at our kids, they are influenced by that. So I guess I could have looked at that situation as like, good, you know what? I told him how I really felt and I didn't hold back. And now he really knows. And I really set him straight. And now he's going to go get a job. But I don't feel that way. And I didn't feel that way. Instead, I feel like even if this is what convinces him to get a job, even if he goes out and gets a job tomorrow, this was a parenting fail. It was a mistake. And that's why the title of this episode is called the right choices for the wrong reasons, because that's what happens when we let our emotions be so influential and powerful at our children. Our kids might make the right choice. Like, it is my opinion that the right choice is for my son to get a job and to also realize that it's fair that he has to have a job and that it's fair that he has these financial responsibilities. That's what I think is right. So it could happen that he goes out and does those things. And so he might be doing what I consider to be the right things, but he's doing them for the wrong reason. He's doing them because it hurts him to know that he and his mom are not, you know, copacetic, and that there's strife and tension in his relationship with his mom. And this is why neutrality is so key, and managing our own emotions is so key, and doing our own work is so key. Because if we can do all of those things, our kids get to make choices, sometimes the wrong choice, sometimes the right choice, from their own internal motivator, not because they are feeling that their relationship with us hangs in the balance. We never want our kids to be doing the right thing, or making the right choice because they're afraid of our emotions, or because they think they're going to get praise from us, or it's going to make us like them more, you know. And if you think back to when you were a kid, why you followed the rules, if you did follow the rules, some of us never did, but if you were a rule follower, or the times when you did follow the rules or do the things your parents wanted you to do, chances are for most of us, the reasons we did that was because we were afraid of our parents' anger, or we were trying to get our parents' praise. Carrot and the stick. We were trying to avoid the stick and we were trying to get the carrot. And that just like breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to think that that might be why my kids do stuff. And I would rather wait and be patient and keep those thoughts and opinions to myself when I'm around my kids, and trust that they will, because of the container I've created. And now that my kids are older, they're not just in a container that I've created, they're in a container that is the world that I have raised them to navigate. Trust that their experiential learning as they go through that container is all they need to learn, and that they will figure out the right thing for them. And by the way, I haven't even gone into the fact that like what I think is right might not be right. Like just because I think the right thing for my son to do is to get a job and to, acknowledge that it's fair for him to contribute to his, car expenses and stuff like that. Like I might be wrong about that. Like that might not be the right thing for him. And I might not be the authority on that. And so, the more that we can be neutral, the more that we allow our kids to figure the stuff out for themselves and make decisions, even wrong decisions. I would rather my kids make the wrong decisions for the right reasons than the right decisions for the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. Once we start, because kids care so much about their relationship with us, it is fundamental to their feeling of safety in this world. As soon as we start emoting or opining about what's going on with our kids, it muddies the water so much for them. It's so distracting. It severs or at least interferes with their ability to know how they feel, what they want, what they think, because it's such a precious thing to them, their relationship with us. So this was like a huge confession for you guys. Like I'm actually kind of a little bit on the verge of getting emotional here as I'm talking to you about how I feel about this conversation with my son. And let me be clear, from the outside, probably anybody who had witnessed that would not have thought it was this egregious mistake. Like I didn't really raise my voice that much. I definitely was passionate about how I was talking, but I wasn't yelling and I didn't say anything mean or cruel to him. I didn't call him names or, and none of that. All I did was express myself. But even that afterwards, I was like, shoot, I wish I hadn't done that. That was a mistake. I really, really want to stay in that neutral place and hold these boundaries that will allow him to learn the lesson instead of me lecturing him and emoting all over him so that he learns this lesson. And let me give you one more example for like a younger kid to really bring this stuff home. And this is why I say it's so much easier when our kids are little. Like I had 2 sessions yesterday with 2 separate dads who have very similar aged kids. So it was basically almost like doing the same session twice, like the stuff we were talking about and everything was so similar. But what we were talking about was they both of them have toddlers, like 3 or 4-year olds. And we were talking about a couple different topics, picky eating. We talked about one of the kids is a runner and loves to like run into the street when it's time to get in the car. Like, all the typical toddler things that you're just like, OMG, this is going to break my brain. But with all of these topics that we talked about, we kept talking also about how important it was for us to just make this container and be totally fine whatever our kids choose in that container. So with the picky eating, it's like, here's dinner. And if you hate dinner, totally cool. Way to listen to your body. You know better than I do if you want to eat this or not. Love you so much. If you decide to eat the dinner, awesome. That's great. You are listening to your body also in that scenario. And I love you so much. I don't have a dog in this race. And as soon as I do, you can see how toddlers are constantly gauging, well, what does my mom think about this? Is it going to piss her off? Is this going to make my dad turn every color of the rainbow? They care a lot about that. And as soon as you give that to them, they have a really hard time, like literally deciding if they want to eat their dinner or not, because it's so rewarding for us to be upset about them not eating their dinner, you know? And so it's so important for us, but it's so much easier with toddlers, in my opinion, to just be like, yep, you're either going to choose to eat your dinner or you're not going to choose to eat your dinner. I love you no matter what you decide. You're either going to choose to walk to the car by yourself in a safe way, or I'll carry you to the car. Love you no matter what you decide. You get to pick, and I'm totally chill with whatever you decide. This is the way that we can still be guiding our kids and holding boundaries and teaching them lessons because we're engineering experiences for them, not because we're pissed off or we're like over the moon proud or we're really hurt or any of that stuff. Once we bring the emotion into the relationship around their behavior, we become coercive. It's coercive. we're using our emotions as leverage. Where we need to bring our emotions in is not about their behavior at all. It's about them as people. My kid comes home from school and says, I'm really into this class that I'm taking this year. I'm able to say, well, that's cool. I can tell that you seem really into it, or you seem really excited about it. That's awesome. Instead of trying to get emotional about, whether they got to school on time, or whether they were respectful to their teacher, or what grade they got in that class. Nope. Just when you share yourself with me, that's when you're going to get emotion from me in a validating way that shows that I see you and I get you and I understand you. That's where the emotion shows. That's where the emotion flows. And when it comes to behavior, really, we need to be neutral. And it's so tricky. So my advice for you today is to just kind of notice, like, are your kids doing the right things for the right reasons or the wrong things for the right reasons? Like, look at the reasons behind what they do instead of looking at what they do. Just look at it and see, like, is my kid doing this because it feels right to them and they're experimenting and they want to test it out and all of that stuff, regardless of whether what they're doing is a good choice or a bad choice? Is that why they're doing this? Or is it because they're afraid I'm going to be mad? Or is it because they're really trying to get some praise from me? Look at the why behind the behavior and see what you come up with. And if you're struggling to stay neutral while you discipline your kid or hold those boundaries, if you're struggling to really even grapple with how to manage your emotions, it's time for us to talk. Like you heard me say earlier today, this is about doing our own work and managing our emotions. Like, it's one thing for me to look at my behavior with my son and judge it and say, that was a mistake. But I also know that I have the wherewithal to make a good choice because I do it most of the time. A lot of parents, if we get to this place where we're looking at stuff and saying, I made a mistake, they don't have the ability to say, I'm not going to do that next time, and to actually not do it or to do something different. And part of that is maybe we just don't know what the different thing to do is. But my story is a great example of, like, I do know what the different thing to do is, but my emotions just, came up. And that was a time where all my skills around taking care of myself and processing my emotions on my own time and taking responsibility for my emotions myself, I didn't tap into those skills. And so there's a piece about this, a huge piece about this, that is us learning how to care for ourselves, manage ourselves, process our emotions, figure out why things trigger us, like all that inner work that's really just ours to work. It is our journey to walk. It is our sort of life's work that has been laid out for us to do. And it's nobody's business but our own. But when we don't do it, then we can't level up in the way we show up with our kids. So it might be time for us to talk, for you to book that free discovery call that you hear me talk about every week, that hour and 15 minutes, so to speak, depending on how blabbery the two of us are, that time that we get to sit and share your story and be heard and understood and talk about what you want your life to look like as a parent and your relationship with your kid to look like and the behavior and the energy in your home to look like. And we can co-create this amazing roadmap that gets you from here to there. I'm excited to meet you if that is where you're at in your journey, ready for some support and help and information. And I will talk to you again next week. The link to set up that free session is in the show notes, and I will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/KaplanCall, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.